Hey guys, welcome to your first online lesson in Algebra 1. This is going to talk about solving one and two-step equations. We're going to jump right into it. Talk about first, what is an equation, right? So the first thing we need in an equation is, let me just make sure I got a pen going here, is we need an equal sign. If you don't have an equal sign, there's no equation, right? But it's basically a statement saying everything over here is identical to everything over here. That's what an equation is, okay? It has to have an equal sign, and it's just saying everything on the left is equal to everything on the right. Now, they may look completely different, okay? But through, using algebra, we're going to be able to manipulate these equations so when we're done, we can find things like variables and what they would be equal to, because that's the thing that we don't know in the problem. Okay, so that's what an equation is. All right, so moving right along. What are some things that are unique to equations? Well, you've probably seen this before, but we can equate a balance scale to an equation. So if I had something like we had in the previous example, if that equaled this, it would be in balance. Everything piled onto this side equals everything piled onto this side. So everything we do in the world of math has to make sure that we don't violate this rule. Okay, so if you think of it as what you're doing to one side, you have to do to the other, it's going to stay balanced, whether that's multiply both sides by 2. If I had 10 pounds here and 10 pounds here and I multiplied them all by 2, they would be 20 pounds, but they would still be balanced, right? If I divided by 5 and divided this side by 5, who knows what I get, but I know they'd both be equal because that's what I started with. So whatever you do to one side, you have to do the same thing to the other side. Keep that in mind. Everything you do, you have to ask yourself, did I do this to one side? Okay? So hopefully that makes some sense. Have a little example here, right? We have 20 plus 30 equals 50. We know that's true, right? And then we add 20 plus 30, and we say 50 equals 50. Now notice, I didn't do anything to this side other than combine the numbers on it, okay? But if I were to add 10 here and add 10 here, I could do that, right? I would just get 60 equals 60, and I'd be fine. It's a different equation, but it's still true. I didn't violate any equations, okay? All right, now in this thing here, I can take out the 20, I can take out the 30, or I could take out the 50, and I could substitute a variable in for those things. Okay, I could say 20 plus some number c, which I don't know, equals 50. But I know up here that number is 30, right? How would I find that? Well, I would have to move this over to the other side. Okay, and that's what we're going to talk about doing. That's how we start to solve equations. Okay, we could have got rid of the 20 and made it an x, and we could have got rid of the 50 and made it a y, but all three are the same equation with different unknowns. Okay, all right, moving on. All right, so when solving equations, the goal is to isolate the variable. What does isolate mean? It means to get the variable, get it by itself. All right, so that's the goal. Get the variable all by itself. And then whatever falls on the other side of the equation, that's what the variable equals. Okay, so how do we do that? All right, so we're going to give you some basic steps on how to do that. All right, so in order to solve an equation, all right, you need to move everything to the other side of the variable using addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. How do you decide which one to do? Because to get it to move to the other side, you have to do the inverse of it. Okay, so if I have like x plus 4 equals 10, and I want to get rid of the plus 4, I am adding 4 right here on this side. So how do I undo this plus 4? I undo it by subtracting 4 from both sides. Right, that's going to keep it in balance. I did the same thing to both sides. Why did I subtract? Because I'm undoing the addition. Okay, So in this case, x would be equal to 6. If I have multiplication, how do I undo it? I divide. If I have division, how do I undo it? I multiply. So that's the question you have to ask yourself. Do I have multiplication here? Do I have subtraction? Do I have division? And then how do I get rid of that number? Well, if it's division, I would multiply. So let's take a look at a quick division one. I might have something like x over 2 equals 10. Well, I know I have to get x by itself. How do I get rid of 2? Well, what am I doing here? I'm dividing x by 2. So how do I undo it? I multiply both sides by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and I get 20. Okay, so that's super important to remember. How do you undo each thing? Okay, if you have addition, you use subtraction on both sides. If you have subtraction, you use addition on both sides. If you have division, you do multiplication on both sides. And if you have multiplication, you would divide both sides. All right, let's keep going. Take a look at what it looks like. Okay, so reverse operations. All right, one way in order to determine how to start an equation, all right, is to think of sad Meg. So we got Meg from the Family Guy here, all right, but we have, do your subtraction first, then do any addition, then do any division, then do any multiplication, then get rid of exponents, then get rid of grouping symbols. Okay, so if you think of sad Meg, that is the order in which you solve an equation. Okay, get rid of all your subtractions, additions, division, multiplication, exponents, and lastly, grouping symbols. Okay, so another thing we have to understand is you might have an equation that looks like this. Well, over here, does the negative belong to the x? Does the negative belong to the 5? Does it belong to both? Right? So we have to figure that out. All right, so the answer is it belongs to either the x or the 5, but not both. So I could write that as negative x over 5 equals 2, or I could write it as x over negative 5 equals 2. Either way is correct, but you cannot write it as negative x over negative 5 equals 2. You have to assign it to 1. Okay, so assign the negative, in this case, to 1. My suggestion, and I've been doing this a while, is assign it to the number on the bottom. I think that's a little easier because it gives you one less step, which you'll see when we go through it. Okay? All right. So, 1 and 2 step equations. So, in order to solve equations, you must work backwards through the order of operations. So if you remember sad Meg, here it is, S-A-D-M-E, and instead of using parentheses so we could get Meg, we use G for grouping, but how do we group with parentheses? Okay, the other thing I would tell you here, and if these type of things confuse you, okay, then just treat it like this. Your goal, and you might want to write this down or make sure you, oops, sorry. Your goal is to get all the numbers to one side. Get all the variables to the other side. This step here of these two things, all right, will always involve the subtraction and addition. Once you have the variables to one side, okay, then you're going to use division and multiplication, all right? And then once you get the variable by itself, then you might have to do something with some exponents or some parentheses, okay? So when you're moving all the numbers to one side and all the variables to other, you're only going to be using addition and subtraction, okay? Addition, subtraction, all right? So remember, we don't touch parentheses until the end. All right, so let's take a look at some one-step equations. All right, now I know some of these are going to be a little easier for you guys at first, all right, but it develops good habits when we practice on easy ones, so when we get to the hard ones in the next lesson, it'll be a lot easier, okay? So I got to get all the numbers to one side, all the variables to the other, all right? I say try to get all the variables to the left. I think that, oh, that's a bad F, I'm sorry. All right, to the left. So in this case, I already have this variable on the left. I'm going to move all my numbers to the right. So I have addition. How do I undo it? With subtraction. So I'm left with n. 5 minus 5 is 0. And 3 minus 5 is negative 2. And there's my answer. Negative 2 plus 5 is 3. Okay? Would you pause the video and try this one? Okay, when you're done, unpause it and you can watch this solution. Okay, so in this case, my n is already over here. So even though I said get the variables to the left, it's over here. It's by itself. There's no number. So I'm going to leave it on the right. No problem. And I got to get this over to the other side because I have to get all my numbers to the opposite side of the variable. So how do I move a subtraction with addition? I don't know why I put a 10 there. Okay, so 11, negative 11 plus 11 is 0. And negative 26 plus 11, right? Remember the rule for opposite signs. You just subtract them and take the sign of the bigger number. So 26 minus 11 is 15, but this is the bigger number, so the answer is negative 15. And there's your answer. Okay, so those are one-step equations. Why are they one step? Because you only have to do one thing to solve them. Okay, so now we have a different operation here. Okay, we have multiplication here. How do I get rid of multiplication? With division. Now we don't divide the opposite, we divide the same. Why the same? Because I want negative 3 divided by 3 to be positive 1x is equal to a negative divided by a negative is a positive 4. Now in algebra, we do not need to write that 1, just know that it exists out there, so we can write this as x equals 4. All right. The reason we have to write it out here is because we don't have to write it out here, but remember that it's there, is because if you have negative x in an answer, that's really like negative 1x. And if I wanted to get rid of that, I would have to divide by negative 1, right? So that's why it's important to know there's a 1 there, but we don't write it. Now over here, we have the variable on one side. We got to get all the numbers to the other. These tend to stump kids sometimes, right? But don't let it fool you. We just have m divided by 4. How do I get rid of division? Multiply both sides by 4. So over here I have negative 20, and over here I have m. Why do I have m? Because 4 times m is 4m, and 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1 times m is m. And there's my answer. So those are some one-step equations for you. 2 steps. Okay, they require 2 steps. So the first thing you want to do in a 2-step equation is move all the numbers to one side and all the variables to the other. So here's my variables. I got to move this. So I add 2. And I get negative 4x is equal to 20. I have multiplication. How do I undo multiplication? With division. 20 divided by negative 4, a positive divided by a negative is a negative. Okay, try this one on your own. Pause the video. Try that one. Okay, here's your answer after you've tried it. Subtract 4 from both sides. Be careful of negative. It's the number one mistake kids make. That goes to 0. 2 minus 4 is negative 2. Now, I'm going to assign this negative. Instead of it being here, I'm going to assign it down here, right? Because it's sitting out front. So I told you I'm going to assign it here. I have division. How do I undo division? With multiplication. Negative 9 divided by negative 9 is 1. Okay? Now I say divide by, right? Because I'm multiplying the negative 9 times the x. So really, I'm left with negative 9x over negative 9. But then those divided by each other just equal that 1. A negative times a negative is a positive 18. And you have an answer. Okay? 2 more examples, all right, that'll get a little trickier. These are tough, right? Because we have division here, and I can't touch this because it's in the division problem. So division is causing me a problem right off the bat. How do I get rid of division? With multiplication. So I have this. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and I'm left with that. Now, how do I undo subtraction? With addition. And I get that. That's a tricky problem. Okay? Over here, okay, I can't add 10 to both sides because this negative 10 is multiplied by this here. So how do I get rid of multiplication? With division. I get 7 is equal to negative 10 divided by negative 10 is 1. And I have parentheses, which are negative 4 plus x. Now, my parentheses just go away, right? Because there's nothing to distribute inside them. I'm just left with that. How do I get rid of my subtraction? With addition. And I get 11 is equal to x. And there's my answer. So those are two-step equations, okay? So you got some examples there of one steps. You got some examples of two steps, okay? If we scroll up, just remember, all right, that you're going to do subtraction and addition first, division, multiplication next, then exponents, then get rid of parentheses, okay? But the goal is always to get all the numbers to one side and the variables to the other, okay? The probably most important thing to take away from this stuff, I think, is this right here. If you could highlight this, let me do it in red, this box right here. Ask yourself, what is causing me the frustration, or what do I have and how do I get rid of it? So if you have a division situation, all right, how would I get rid of it? By multiplying both sides by whatever it is. So if you're looking at something and you have v plus 4 over 2 is equal to 10, and you're like, this is really confusing me, this dividing by. Okay, well, let's just get rid of it. How do I get rid of this divided by this, multiply by this, multiply by this, and they go away. And you're left with v plus 4 equals 20. Subtract 4 from both sides. Why am I subtracting? Because I have addition here, right? And how do I get rid of addition? Subtraction. And I get v equals 16. Okay, so thanks for watching. We'll do some problems tomorrow. We'll get this stuff down and move forward. All right, take care.